And we're live. Hey guys, this is Frank with Frank Talks. And this is Frank Talk. Frank Listens number 9. We're almost to 10. So guys, when I was a kid, I was pretty imaginative. I would dream about how the world should be. I would think that stores should lower their prices so that people can afford their products, and the companies should raise their wages so that people should even be paid by the government so that they don't have to work or not work as much. I didn't know that all these ideas had already been thought of. I thought that these were my own ideas. I didn't know that there were people out there that had already believed these things. I've since changed my mind, but many millennials, many of my peers have not. Millennials overwhelmingly supported Bernie Sanders and in the primaries for this past presidential election. And even in the general election, many millennials voted for Bernie Sanders as a write-in. So I have with me one such young lady was a Bernie Sanders supporter, but has since changed her mind, and she's become, well, she'll tell you herself. Guys, this is Jessica Dobrinsky. Jessica, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm Jessica Dobrinsky. I am going to be a sophomore this fall at West Virginia University. I'm studying criminology with a minor in law and legal studies, and I'm hoping to go to law school. So I am a libertarian that was an ex-Bernie supporter and socialist, and I'm going to share my story with you guys today.
Yeah. Okay. So, guys, I gotta let you know. So Jessica decided to do this interview with us on her birthday. So if you don't wish her a happy birthday in the comments, you're almost as bad as Hitler. Like, here's Hitler, and here's you. Oh wait, no, that's worse than Hitler. You guys are worse than Hitler if you don't wish her a happy birthday. It's facts, man. It's facts. You're worse than Hitler. And yeah. So wish her a happy birthday in the comments. How was that? There you go. And listen, and if you don't reply to every single one of those comments with a thank you.
Oh, I will. Don't worry.
You don't like those people that deny the Holocaust. So just...
Yeah.
Okay. It shouldn't be too bad. I'm not expecting a lot of responses. A little bit of self-deprecating humor. Of course, I could always be shocked this time. We could get a lot of views and a lot of comments. So you are 19. You're turning 19, correct?
Yes, 19 today.
And so 19, and you are cutting into this whole world of libertarianism. Really, why don't we just hop into it? So why don't you tell us your story, how you got into politics, and how you shifted from socialism to libertarianism.
Okay, so yeah, to explain my story, I kind of have to start with my childhood a little bit. I always wanted to be a police officer. I've wanted to be a police officer ever since I was in 4th grade. I went to a special law program in high school, not at my home high school, to follow the dream. And so helping people was always very high on my list. And so that's really all I've cared about. And I think part of the reason why I'm very into politics. And in addition to that, I have a very religious mom, and my parents are both Republicans. And so they've always voted very conservative. I grew up in a conservative household. And my understanding of Republicanism when I was a child was Christianity and religious affiliation. And so because my parents were religious, I used to go to VBS and Bible school and go to Sunday school. And I always came out very frustrated and not understanding what was going on. So from a very early age, I knew I wasn't really fitting in with that side. And so I've identified myself as agnostic. I used to think I was atheist, but I'm not. Now that I've talked to conservatives and I've talked to them about my beliefs, they're like, no, you believe in something. You just haven't pinpointed what religion it is yet. So because of that, I distanced myself from republicanism because I just saw the religious side of it.
So you're an independent?
Yeah, I'm a registered independent, yeah. Okay. So yeah, that was my breakaway from conservatism at a young age. And I didn't ever think I was going to get into politics, but that's kind of reflected onto my journey to this point. And then as a child, I also was obsessed with Martin Luther King Jr. I loved those lessons in class. I thought it was the coolest thing. I knew from a very young age that if that was going on today, or if I was living back then, I would not care and I would be marching with them. So that is something I've always held very high, is equality, which is something that a lot of liberals and socialists and, proclaim. So as a child, like I said, I had these preconceived ideas that this is what I wanted. Another thing that is kind of interesting about me is that I really like heavy metal, heavy rock kind of things. I'm really into the whole music scene. My dad is a musician, so I was always kind of into that crowd. Music has meant a lot to me. And when you're kind of in that crowd, you mess around with some people, like talk to people who...
Yeah, it's a very liberal crowd, right?
Yeah, it's a liberal crowd, and it's very different from the ones that are within your own home. And so I was going to Warped Tour, and I was going to all these heavy metal bands with the black clothes and things. And so I was exposing myself to very different types of people, which I absolutely think that helped me get to where I am, that kind of exposure. But I saw these people because a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are this very extreme left. And so I knew from a young age, I wasn't a Republican, I wasn't a conservative. And I said, oh, maybe this is it. They are accepting, they don't care. I have had different colored hairs, I've had piercings, I have tattoos. And I was like, this is the crowd I want to be in. They seem like they don't care who you are. They want to be your friend. And I said, this is it. So I was around those people. When I became a senior in high school, I got interested in politics. I had a high school teacher in my law class who talks about politics a little bit and his teachings of law and showed how it related to make it, applicable. And so my interest started my senior year, and I took to Twitter. And I remember my first encounter with the left was feminism. I was a self-proclaimed feminist. I hated the white man. I hated straights. Everything about them was wrong, or, that was what I was told, at least. And the first introduction to feminism, which Milo Yiannopoulos is actually one of my biggest role models, but one of his biggest things about feminism is that he says it started from Gamergate. And Gamergate is when the video games that were having like women, like in Grand Theft Auto, you could beat them up or steal cars. That was saying that was influencing how male interact with society. And I think that definitely had an impact, but my interaction with feminism and how I saw it start was on a smaller scale. And so this is my first encounter with feminism was the armpit hair. And it was all about not shaving your armpits. Why do we have to do this for men? Why do they expect us? And when I heard this, I was like, yeah, do what you want. I don't care. And so that's something that I really think is important to show now, is that from the start, I was kind of always had this libertarian ideology. I just didn't know how to recognize it yet. So I was like, wow, why are people telling other people what to do? Who cares? Do what you want. And I saw those people label themselves as feminists. And I also remember first seeing it and seeing, well, I didn't really understand it. And I told my dad, and I remember sitting in the car with him and saying, so there's this new thing called feminism. I said, and it is stupid. And I said, why can't we accept that we are biologically different from men? Like, we should appreciate that. And it's funny that I said that because within a month or two, I was a feminist, and I was fighting men, and I was hating them, and I was doing everything that I could to stop them. And it's just crazy how in that short amount of time, my mind could be changed. So it's really interesting to see how somebody who didn't seem like they could be influenced really was. So in April of 2015, Bernie Sanders announced his candidacy, and I've always hated the Clintons. So I knew I wasn't going to vote for a Republican. There's no way. I was already a feminist. I was already, you know, decided.
16 of them for you. Right?
Yeah, 16 people not even considering it, wasn't even going to look at their platforms, which is terrible because now I look back at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz. But yeah, I just completely threw them out. So I hated the Clintons, and I hated the Clintons because I still am very proud to be a woman. And as a feminist, I was even more proud. And I thought things surrounding Bill and Hillary, it was unsettling to me.
Yeah, people like hated
Yeah. And so, you know, I was okay with people liking them because I was like, oh, they'll see the light. I kept telling myself that, which they clearly never did. And so Bernie Sanders came out, and he was just different, and he told it like it was in a way. And you know, I still have a soft spot in my heart for Bernie, and I said that in my Turning Point USA interview. Actually, I think there are some good things about him as a person, maybe not as a politician. I think he was admirable to me because he has stuck by what he has said since he was 19 years old. Like, he has been passionate about the same things, and when you don't flip all the time and say what's popular, I think that's important, and I think that you should get recognition for that. So that was something that really drew me in because I knew how politics works, and I knew that people lied, and I knew that people cheated, and I didn't like that. And so Bernie Sanders came out, and I said, I'm going to watch this guy. So a couple months later, July, I created a Twitter, and my username was PrideFemme. It's actually the same Twitter now, just a different username. And I said, I'm going to join into this social justice warrior world, and I'm going to fight the fight, and I'm going to take down all the cis white men, and I'm going to fight the patriarchy, and I'm going to get rid of the wage gap. So as soon as I joined Twitter, some really big events happened. Sandra Bland. And that was really, really eye-opening to me because...
I'm sorry, who's that?
Sandra Bland? Did you never hear? Okay, so I'll go ahead and explain. Okay, so Sandra Bland was an African-American woman who was pulled over at a rest stop. Not a rest stop. Was pulled over driving for a traffic stop. And I can't remember at the moment what her charge was or what they were pulling her over for. But it was a white officer that pulled her over and saying she didn't understand why. I think it was like her blinker was out or something along those lines. And she was on the way to a job interview. And so it escalated a little bit. She got frustrated, and she was like, I don't understand why. And you can see the video of it. And they arrested her. They put her in her cell. And that evening, like a couple hours later, I believe, they found that she had hung herself with one of the trash bags in the jail cell. And the big controversy with that was that it was a white officer who arrested her for a minimal charge that they believed they would have not arrested another white person for. And she was talking about how happy she was and how she has come out of her depression, and she was on the way to a job interview to, you know, start this new life and, you know, kind of like a second chance ordeal. And she was suspected of suicide. So that caught my eye. And people were talking about it, saying that the police department killed her and that it was set up because she is an African American. And that was also kind of the one of the starts of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so that stuck with me. And I didn't know how to perceive it because I'm originally from Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is a city, and it's very diverse. And I had never seen something like that happen. Wherever I grew up, it was never like that. So I always thought, well, maybe out there are these situations and there are these types of people, and I have to fight the fight for them. And so Cassandra Fairbanks, who is my all-time favorite journalist, I don't know if you follow her.
I've heard the name.
Okay, yeah, she, if you get a chance to talk to her, you really should, because she's kind of had the same situation as me. I have followed her since day one of Twitter, and day one of my political journey. She was a Bernie supporter. And she is now, she voted for Donald Trump, and she is a Trump supporter and a little more conservative than she was. And she was really big into tweeting about the events going on. So I followed her heavily, and she was one of my biggest influences because she was always in the middle of all of it. She'd go to these rallies, she'd go to these protests. Like, she would travel long distances and she would report about it. Yeah. And so that's how I got my information a lot of times, because she would go to places that I never would have thought about, or places that were completely different from where I grew up, and give me a perspective. So it did open my eyes a lot to the Black Lives Matter movement and feminism, and it got me fired up. And that's exactly what they were looking for. They were trying to get people fired up. And then the Dylan Roof incidents occurred, where he was the man who the church, with the African American church. And so that was another thing. And it was just so much fuel in the beginning that just kept adding and adding and adding. And I was just tired of it. And I was like, wow, this is really, really alarming. So feminism really picked up by that. I was fired up. I was done with the system. And I started exploring more. So I was following a lot of really prominent feminists on Twitter, and was learning about the wage gap. And I believe there was 78 cents that a woman was earning to a man's dollar. And then the Target bathrooms happened. And, which was the trans thing, you could use whatever bathroom you wanted. And again, I was saying, who cares? Why does it bother you if it doesn't affect your life? Which again is that libertarian in me that I didn't know was a libertarian. I never heard of these third parties at the time. I'd only heard of the two-party system. So Amber Rose was a big thing at the time. I loved her, and I was really, really adamant on Twitter about it. So I'm going to share the screen real quick, because I'm going to show you some of the things that was influencing my Twitter. So let me think how I line. Okay, so these are like things I was retweeting, and you can see at the bottom of the screen it says retweeted by Dob Jessica. At the time I was Pride Femme, but these are the types of things I was retweeting, and it makes me sick to my stomach now, because I would never ever do this, and I wish I could just hit myself. But I was saying, this is why I hate America. There's not enough bottom-up control. We're run by dumb, wealthy, inconsiderate white men.
Well, that actually, part of that tweet is true. There's not enough bottom-up control. That's what we're supposed to be, a bottom-up government.
See, and I think that's kind of where they get you, is they find the little detail you agree with, and then they throw in the rest of the I hate white men, I hate America, and then you get stuck in this.
That's always how lies are sold, with a little bit of truth.
And so this is some of the things I was saying. and I was tweeting things like just white people being white people as usual, and just everybody that was white, I was constantly ridiculing them, when obviously I'm a white person.
You looked in the mirror, Becky.
Yeah, and it's just funny. I used to say that to my parents, and I used to come home and be like, oh my God, I hate white people. My mom used to look at me like, what? Like, do you realize, like, you are a Caucasian woman? And I didn't want to face that, or I was a special kind of Caucasian. So then cultural appropriation, which is the bottom tweet. You couldn't dress as a Native American. You couldn't dress as a pirate. I mean, there were so many ridiculous things. Just a little girl being Pocahontas or Jasmine from Disney was offensive. Every little thing that they could find, they'd rip apart. And then it amounted to this. I hate when people dress like this. We get it. You're voting for Donald Trump. So I was very, very against Donald Trump, and I associated it with the KKK and Nazism. And I had no shame in saying that, and I used to tell it to my friends. I have two very, very close friends of mine who are big Trump supporters, and I used to tell them that all the time, which obviously they aren't. And then again, I salute white people reminds me so much of another salute, and it was Hitler. So you see how it's constantly comparing Republicans and conservatives to these terrible, terrible people to justify the terrible things I was doing. And this is kind of what feminism was. It was justifying their wrongdoings for something that they didn't agree with. Mm. And then this really caught my eye when I was going through my feed the other day, and I really disgusted myself. The fact that I even thought it was okay to retweet. Doctors perform abortions are some of the bravest and most compassionate people on the planet. They deserve respect. And I think it's shocking because this is the stance that a lot of feminists go at. They think pro-choice is pro-abortion, and they want to advocate for the cause. Personally, I am pro-choice, but I think it's a terrible decision. I just think it is not the business of the government, but I don't agree with those who do it. But to argue that it's brave and these people are compassionate and deserve respect blows my mind that I even would have considered even liking the tweet or following this person.
Yeah.
So then here is my kind of transition, what I looked like back in the day. As you can see, I looked miserable. What was that?
From oldest to youngest, or are we going from oldest to newest picture? Or?
So the middle was actually this time last year. So it goes. It goes. The farthest on the right. Yeah, the farthest on the right is the oldest. And then the farthest on the left is in the middle, and then the one in the middle is the most recent. Yeah. So the one in the middle was actually me. Almost to the day a year ago. And as you can see, I wanted to be different. And I was really letting an ideology that is feminism dictate what I looked like and how I appeared. Okay, so socialist me was kind of alive and well at that point. I wanted everyone to have a really good life. Bernie was all the time talking about redistributing wealth, and that sounded good. And I think everybody, no matter who you are, you want everybody to be successful. You want people to have access to good health care. You want people to be successful, have money, have a home, have a family. I mean, if you don't agree with that, that's un-American. I mean, that's what this country is built on. But it's just how we go about it. And so I was using my emotion to drive some of my opinions a little bit. And I wanted, it really did. And I didn't want that to be dictated by your color, your gender, your sexual preference, anything like that. And so I didn't give those 16, conservative Republican nominees, a chance. No way, because if I heard one of them, maybe I would have heard how they would handle the situation. I only let Bernie Sanders tell me how he was going to handle the situation. And so he was talking about, well, we just tax these people who have so much money that it wouldn't affect them if we took a little bit. Then we could have the people here at the bottom have a little bit better of a life. And I said, okay, why not? These people who are billionaires and millionaires, what's going to happen if they have $100,000 less? They have millions more. So I was on board with the whole taxing thing. And socialism was a really scary word to me. As a kid, you learn in school what the different types of governments are, democracy, communism, socialism. And socialism really, really was a scary word. But Bernie Sanders was not a socialist. He was a democratic socialist. And, that's something really, really interesting because I actually found this out two months ago, maybe not even that long ago, at a summit in DC with Turning Point, that the USSR in their constitution actually refers to it as democratic socialism. And that is one of the most insane socialist communism, democracies out there.
that's the reason that we're not a democracy, we're a republic.
Right.
So, you talk about the Republican Party, that's why we keep the name Republican. But democracy always leads to socialism, because when especially pure democracy always leads to socialism, because whenever the majority can vote away the rights of the minority, the rich are the minority, and you have socialism, you have wealth redistribution.
Right, exactly. And I didn't understand it for so long. And I was like, no, it's democratic socialism. It's democratic socialism. And I think, I didn't really understand even what that meant. Because I feel like when you look at democratic socialism, the definition, you're like, that still doesn't sound right or appealing at all. And I think the term democratic, it was the Democrats, and I was a Democrat. And so it was approved. It was approved by the Democrats. So, it had to not be real socialism. It wasn't going to destroy this country. It was going to make it better. It was going to make it great again, according to Bernie Sanders. And so I wanted free college. My family isn't. Don't we all? But join the military, and then you got it. At least in West Virginia, you join the National Guard. And that's what people always used to tell me. I used to get so frustrated, but now I'm telling that to other people. So it's kind of funny how you see the tables turn.
Or work for it and go to like really cheap college.
Right. And so my family, we're not by any means rich. We're not even really wealthy. So college really was a struggle, and I never wanted to go to college until my senior year of high school, which is when I was going through this kind of socialism, feminism phase of mine. It was a last-minute decision. I always wanted to be a police officer, and halfway through my senior year, I said, I think I want to be a lawyer. I think I want to go to law school and go to college and try this whole thing out. So it was really real to see how much it was in scholarships and kind of see the numbers in front of my face. And it was scary. And so it was convenient to cling on to somebody like Bernie Sanders and hear him say, well, we want you to get an education. We want you to live your dream, and we're going to pay for it. And I said, okay, absolutely. Yeah, you can pay for it, because I don't know how I'm going to. And I didn't really look into it. I just was like, yep, I want it to be free. So again, I wasn't looking at the facts. I was looking at the surface, and in the surface, socialism does look so good. But then you delve deeper, and it really, there's a big issue with it. I used to also say that guns, oh gosh, I hated guns, which is
icky and gross.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, this is another really terrible thing I used to say. I said that guns should be handled in the way we handle abortions. You must have a 48-hour waiting period, a doctor's note, parental approval or the spousal approval or whatever it may be. I said, if you want your guns, you have to do it the same way we get our abortions. Jessica, hold on for a minute. No, that's not how you do it. It's literally in the Constitution that you have the right to have that. But again, Pulse nightclub
Constitution, it's your inherent right to defend your life.
Yes, and defend against my government. So yeah, no, you're good.
I'm man interrupting or interrupting.
Mansplaining. God, don't.
Yeah, mansplaining too.
Yeah, that was another thing. Any guy who tried to explain something to me, they were mansplaining. And I was so aggravated. I was done with it. I was like, stop. But yeah, so I was very anti-gun, and I think that was influenced by the shootings like Pulse nightclub, the Sandy Hook events, things like that really just, it's heartbreaking when you hear that 27 children in elementary school lose their lives. And that hurts your heart no matter who you are. But it's how you look at the solution. Okay, so you had to start looking at, do you want to take away the guns? Because criminals are criminals because they don't follow the law. And I didn't understand, well, if you take away the guns, then nobody has them. Well, no, you're taking away the right for people to defend themselves. And why don't we just lift a regulation that lets a security guard carry a gun in a school? And maybe we could have saved 27 lives that day. Yeah. So it's really about perspective. I think everybody wants the same goal. It was just broadening my horizons and giving other sides a chance, and listening to compromises and things like that. So healthcare, I also said, was a right and it was not a privilege. Everybody deserved health care. And I couldn't tell you what amendment that was in the Constitution, but I knew it was a right. And I argued that and I argued that. So my breakaway from feminism, however, and socialism happened right after. Well, I started questioning a lot of things. I volunteer with my local fire department, and that was kind of my helping to give back to my community since I no longer wanted to be a police officer. I still wanted to be in touch with my community a little more. So I said, this is my option, and my stepdad is a firefighter. So I went there, and it's a lot of guys, and there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of them were Republicans, and a lot of them liked Trump. And they'd always harass me because I actually went to the firehouse one time in a shirt that said "Feel the Burn." I got it off of Amazon. Still have the shirt to this day.
Oh, it's ironic to have in the firehouse.
Yeah. So I went to see the president of the firehouse, who I'm very good friends with, and I showed him the shirt. And he used to banter. We used to go back and forth, and he used to say, "Oh, you're going to change your mind. You're going to change your mind. You'll see." And so those people constantly like challenge, I think, really kind of pushed me to step back and start questioning the things I was reading and being told on Twitter. So, they were always saying, like, I was always arguing, Donald Trump's a racist, Donald Trump is transphobic, he's xenophobic, he's Islamophobic. And they were like, what? It's like, oh, here's this video. And they were like, yeah, well, I watched that debate and they just edited this clip, and this clip. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, they got me. And I'd be like, well, Republicans, they want to give everybody guns and they don't want people to have healthcare. And that was like a good argument back in the day, I thought. Because I didn't know, I knew how to argue, but I didn't know how to get facts because I wasn't being forced to have facts. I was reading Twitter, and that's all I was using. I still read Twitter, but I read articles and I go to conferences and I talk to people and I challenge my views on a day-to-day basis. And so, that kind of just hit me one day. And there was a tweet that came out, and it was tweeted at me. Let me see if I can get it up so I can share it with you guys. Because it kind of was the tweet that did it in for me. That kind of made me realize I was done. So it's this one right here. Oh man, here we go. Charlie Puth, who is a singer, said the situation is devastating for Luke, typical misogynist, supporting rape culture and against feminism. Now, the background to this, that Charlie Puth is a singer, and he currently the song out. Jen, if you haven't heard it, I highly recommend. And it's called Attention. Okay. And so he was up and coming around this time, like March of last year. And the whole Kesha thing, which I don't know if you knew about that.
Just explain it for the people.
Okay, so the accusation was that Dr. Luke, who was her producer, was sexually assaulting her during her time for making music. She's a singer. She's been a singer since like 2011, 2012, I think. Could be wrong. could be wrong. I was like in middle school. And she stopped making music for a while, and she had to because they owned the rights to her music. And, she couldn't break away from this contract, and it was just this whole ordeal about how her producer, the person that pretty much owned her career, was sexually assaulting her, and she brought it to court. Mm-hmm. It was devastating. It was really a terrible, terrible thing to see a woman with, I think, so much talent and just so much compassion and kindness be manipulated in that kind of way. And Charlie Puth was interviewed on the red carpet for the Grammys or maybe Kids' Choice Award, something like that, and was interviewed, and they asked him what his opinion was, and he said it was devastating for Dr. Luke and for Kesha, and it was devastating to hear what was going on for them. And people heard, all they heard was that it was devastating that Dr. Luke was going through that, which was the producer's name. And people lost their minds because they're like, he's a rapist sympathizer. And that's not what he was saying. And, you know, people were looking really into it. It is devastating what happened to him because he was somebody who had such a successful production company and was producing so many successful people. And then to have something like that come out about him, like, that is devastating. And that's, you don't have to sympathize. You don't have to say he doesn't deserve to go to jail. I think he, you know, deserves, you know, endless jail time. Yeah, but it's sad. It's incredibly sad to see these people in Hollywood that we glamorize and that we put on these pedestals do these terrible things that, you know, we're putting regular people on the street in jail for, but they're gonna get away with it. And so, you know, they took something of somebody that maybe didn't say what they wanted, and they used it against him. And so I was a little bit late on that feminism side and the fight against him. And I tweeted out, he had just released a new song, and I loved it. And I tweeted on my Twitter, I love Charlie Puth's new song. It's awesome. And I was torn apart. I was a sympathizer of rape. I was supporting misogyny. I was no longer a real feminist. And that really hurt because for the past year and a half of my life, I thought I was, by being on Twitter and by having feminist in my bio, I thought I was doing so much good for the world. And to be told that I was, you know, okay with somebody doing such a thing to a woman was awful and hurtful, and, you know, it made me mad. And so I looked deeper into it, and I watched the interview, and I said, oh, that's not what he meant at all. But nobody wanted to listen to that. And in the song that I actually tweeted out too, there was a line that said, he talks about he's like Superman and he'll be there to save the day. And he's just talking about, it's a love song, being there for a girl, you know, the girls love it. But no, that was supporting the patriarchy, because we don't need to be saved. We can save ourselves. And it's like, it's a love song. Give me a break. They're not like saying that women can't be strong and powerful. It's a love song. You know, you want to be swept off your feet. And that was kind of like my aha moment. And I was like, I want to step back a little bit. And then intersectional feminism came along. And that was really, really interesting, because you were no longer a feminist and you were no longer helping the world and doing justice if you were just a feminist, because you had to be intersectional, which meant you had, that was your special identification, that you accepted people of color and trans people and gay people, because if you were a feminist, white people. And so you had to be an intersectional feminist, because it was inherent that because you were just a feminist, you were also a racist. And I got tired of it. And I think that's kind of what drove me away from the left. There were arguments, of course, that really were brought to my attention, and I was like, oh, I never thought about that before. But it was the constant, I'm tired, I'm done. I kept trying to live to these people's standards. And it's really interesting if you watch anything about Scientology, or if you hear anything about Leah Remini right now with her TV show and her escape from Scientology. It's so funny how similar it was, because she talks about how to get to this next level, you know, in Scientology, or, you know, to do this, you had to buy more books, and you had to, you know, go to more classes and pay more money. And that's how it was with feminism. And it was like, you had to accept this, you had to accept this, and you had to accept that. And if you weren't a feminist, and you were a racist. And I didn't want to be labeled a racist. God, that was the last thing I ever was. Martin Luther King Jr. was my idol for years. So finally I said, I'm done. Call me what you want. I know what I believe, and I know that I have no hate in my heart for any of these people that you're going to accuse me of, so bring it on. And then the DNC happened, and Bernie lost very, very wrongly. He should have won. Thankfully, he didn't. Yeah, thank God he did it, or else he might be president right now. Yeah, it's a scary thought. But that kind of made me go, oh my gosh, this is so wrong. This wasn't even fair. And I was so angry again. And I was back to where I started being angry. And so I got off of Twitter and I said, I got to take a break. And so I took a break for a couple months and I said, well, I don't know what to do now. I'm not voting for a Republican. Nope, no way. Because I still, at that point, was still alienated for them. I was not going to give them a chance. I said, but now I hate the Democrats. At the time, I hated them, but now not so much. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I have to vote for president of the United States. Like, this is a once in a lifetime thing, you know. And I was like, this is a big deal. Like, you know, I thought it was my only chance to make a difference. And of course it wasn't, but I had to make my decision. And so I started looking into my arguments that I used to have, and I started looking at the counter ones. And so I looked at, my first one that I started with was the wage gap. And I saw how they broke it up and how it was actually a median rather than like you and I go to McDonald's and we both work and, well, they're going to pay you $1, but they're going to pay me 78 cents an hour. That's not how it works. And that's how I always thought it worked. No, they take the median incomes for women and men across the nation, and then they divide it by the two, and you see that gap. And it doesn't account for things like pregnancy that women have or our life choices. You know, men are more likely to go into STEM fields and or more likely to be teachers or nurses. And that's okay. And that's just part of men being men and women being women. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And so when I first heard that, I said, wow, everything is a lie. So I went deeper and deeper. And I started talking to my friends more who supported Donald Trump. And I have a really good friend who was a Donald Trump supporter from day one. And he, well, let me back up for a minute. I graduated high school, and when you graduate high school, obviously you start paying for things on your own. You start, you know, paying for healthcare and doing your own, you know, paying for your own copay and things. And I remember that specific friend of mine being so upset because his family's in no shape broke, or, you know, they're well off. They're, you know, they have money. And it was surprising to me when I started looking to Obamacare and saw that premiums went up. And the fact that he was starting to struggle to pay copays because of Obamacare. And I was shocked because I said, wait a minute, I wanted to help these people, and I wanted to make everybody be healthy and have access to healthcare. People. And I said, wait, hold on a minute. This isn't what I wanted. And so I looked into that, and I saw the effects of universal healthcare. And it opened my eyes. And so I was forced to look at the Libertarian Party a little bit, because by that time I think Donald Trump had gotten the spot. And I was a fan of Donald Trump a little bit. I didn't want to admit it to myself. I wasn't going to admit it. I went through all of summer last year, and I supported Donald Trump. I watched every interview. I was following his tweets. Oh, I loved Donald Trump. And I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but I really liked how he kind of did what I did and was kind of going against the system and going against everybody wanted him to do. And I felt like I was doing that in a way with some and liberalism. But I discovered the Libertarian Party, and I started looking into it, and I said, oh my gosh, this is what I have been believing since day one. And it was like, it was my just right porridge, you know, from Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Like, it was everything I had wanted. It was fiscally conservative and socially a little bit liberal. And I really liked it. And so I found my way with that. And I'm a big L libertarian, so I vote libertarian. I didn't vote for Donald Trump in the presidency, and I think that was also my denial a little bit. And I was also very afraid because I had voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary, and I didn't want to make doing a wrong vote again. And I said, well, I still am not sure about those Republicans, and so I'm not gonna give it to Donald Trump. But I live in a state that I know is going to go red, so my vote won't be and I'm going to give it to the party that follows my principles. And so I really stuck with that, sticking with my principles. So came into college, and being a volunteer with the fire department was a really good excuse to be a volunteer for a Republican congressman that was running for re-election. And I was an intern for one of his employees, and absolutely loved it. And I met really great people. And the most interesting part is that they weren't as restrictive and conservative as I thought they'd be. They were fun, and they had a conversation, and they weren't afraid to hear my side of things that maybe they didn't agree with. And that's something that I didn't find in liberalism. It was their way or the highway. And I was able to find some conversation in conservatism. And then this past January, I found Turning Point USA, and it really opened my eyes. And it's a nonpartisan organization, of course, so I got the chance to meet some other libertarians, which was really cool, and hear other people who came to the side of conservatism, and really educate myself in the proper way, and meet people who are always challenging my views. So it's been awesome, and it's a long time coming. Living in specialized medicine to wanting government out of every aspect of my life. But yeah, it was really really fun to see the influence that the little things in your life have to do with it, and how everybody really does want the same goal. It's just how they go about it. And I think it's important that we start displaying these facts to people. That's one of the big things about Turning Point, is giving people facts, because once I saw the facts is when I changed my mind. And I still have a little bit of a liberal heart, and I think that's why I'm a libertarian. But there's nothing wrong with a liberal heart who wants to help people, but also wants the government to be out of your business, and to help people in the right way.
Yeah.
So
I'm hearing feedback. From you have. Oh my gosh, I hate hearing myself. Like I say the same thing.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Okay, so you talked about heavy metal rock bands. Who's your favorite band?
Oh gosh, Of Mice and Men.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, like, what genre of rock do you go for?
I don't. Man, all the metalhead fans are gonna hate me, but is it like screamo? I don't know, like the official names of it.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know either. I thought you would know.
Oh no, I'm just like, oh, this is good. Let me add this to my playlist. Warped Tour. Maybe that's the genre.
I like Skillet, but then people tell me that they're not real metal. So yeah, you want to talk about metalhead.
There's like different types, like subcategories of metal. Like I can go from Five Finger Death Punch to like A Mice and Men and stuff like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, who was Ted Cruz was saying he went to? Was it a Bono concert? He goes to some like pretty metal bands.
Really?
You, like, follow him on Twitter. He's like into he's referencing Van Halen, and like he's actually like he's kind of a nerd, but he's got his cool side. Like I think everyone hated on him during the primary. Ted Cruz was my guy during the primary.
Okay.
Everyone hated on him. It was really because he was a nerd. That was the whole thing.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
I wish I would have paid more attention to the primaries, because he might have been my guy. Him or Rand Paul.
Yeah, my whole thing was you vote where principle meets strategy. So
yeah,
lines up with your principles the most, but the person who's most likely to win, and that was Ted Cruz. There were some people that lined up with my principles more. As a social conservative, I liked Mike Huckabee, and I liked Bobby Jindal, and Rand Paul was cool, and Marco Rubio was cool. I loved Carly Fiorina. Did you get to meet her? No,
I didn't get to meet her, but I saw Young Women's 2 weeks ago. Amazing. I'm absolutely blown away. I never had really given her the chance, because at the time I was, at this time I was super liberal.
Every time she spoke, I literally got chills. Like I think about girls that follow certain politicians because it's just a crush sort of thing.
Yeah.
I now know what that's like. Except she was my first political crush. I love it. I love her, and I wanted her to be president. She was at the top for a very short.
She was everything that feminism I thought feminism was supposed to be, and I saw that Young Women. She was so empowering, and I walked out of there and I wanted to be like, I'm a woman. like that's right. And it was awesome.
Well, make the distinction between classical feminism and modern feminism. I think I may have said
there's 3 waves, and this wave is third wave feminism.
Right. You can break it up into 3 waves, but I look at it as the classical and the modern.
Yeah, that's another I've never heard that term, but that's actually another really good way to look at it.
Classical feminism it's just a wing of egalitarianism. The idea that we're all equal. And it's just a wing of that focuses on, women and elevating women. And there is a time and a place for that. But the time and the place for that it's not America, and it's not now. It's, other places in the world where they do not have that kind of.
Well, see, the interesting thing is that I like to argue now is that people a lot of times, especially conservatives now, will say, okay, so feminism has a bad connotation now because some of the things that they say and do and promote. So would you consider yourself feminist or an egalitarian? And I always like to say no. I consider myself American because we're a country that's founded on these basic principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think that's equality. And yeah, we had some bumps in the road, but I think that's what makes America really unique and really wonderful is that we do fight for each other. And so you don't need feminism for that. And yeah, maybe back in the day it was cool to be a feminist and, get the right to vote. And, we did need that extra microscope over some of those issues. But I like to just think that it's an American thing now to want everyone to be equal and, have a fair shot.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to go into the free speech, but it's almost been an hour. So I think it's time for us to cut this short before we hit the hour mark. And we had 5 viewers at one point, so that's pretty good. I don't think I've ever seen that before. So for those of you who are watching, Jessica, stay on. We'll talk after we stop the live cast. So I just have some closing thoughts to some of the viewers. If you guys check out the links in the description, a couple different things. If you like this video, give it a like. If you're on Facebook, like our page, or if you're on YouTube, subscribe to our page. There's also a link down there to sign up for our emails. I know that a lot of people don't want to get emails all the time, but I'm trying to just keep it monthly, and getting our emails helps. You get content that we can't put on Facebook because sometimes Facebook won't show our content to everyone who's liked our page. So you get to see more of the stuff that we post, and you get to make sure that you see all of our videos. Comment below. Make sure you wish Jessica a happy birthday, and also give us your thoughts because you're a Nazi if you don't. Share this video. That's important. And below we have links to my GoFundMe and my Patreon, so we can continue to make videos like this, and we can improve the quality of this. I mean, I'm recording this in my parents' basement, and I have this puzzle in the background. This is lovely. I'd like to have an actual window there someday, like a studio, like an actual studio. That'd be nice. We can dream, and if you want to keep messages like this coming, we need financial support, and it's not just support, but we're looking to give to create merchandise for you guys. Right now we just have the pens. I'm looking to put out shirts soon, and all that will be coming up, so check out the GoFundMe and Patreon links below. Thank you guys for your time, and good night and good luck to us all.